Yeah, let's do it.
Alright, guys, welcome back to another episode. It's The Good Life, your practical guide to adulting. My name is Anthony Chow, joined here by my co-hosts here, Joshi and David Herring. I'm super excited to announce that this is episode 7. We're really coming, guys. This one's going to be a really big one. We're continuing our series on doing a deep dive on each one of our stories. Last week, you heard David's just for continuity. I'm sure you guys loved it. This is going to be a deep dive into my own story. Yeah, we'll just take it away from there.
So, intro question.
Yes.
We were talking about on the way here because we're here pretty early in the morning. What is like your ideal wake up alarm? Do you need something that will shock you awake, or do you prefer to have something that's a little more gentle?
Mm, I got the perfect one.
Hit it off.
Do you remember the name of it?
I think I do.
Okay.
All right, guys. Ladies and gents, I think the most infamous sound that you can wake up to is, I believe it's called the radar. It's like the one that sounds like a freaking submarine,
Yeah.
and you're just like, you got all those echoes going on, like.
Oh, that's
And I'm
right.
like,
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
like,
Yeah.
I'm sure like people in Vietnam had more flashbacks than
Do
this.
you do you have so if someone like have you ever had those instances where someone will have their alarm go off in public and
Yeah.
it brings you back to that disruptive
Yes.
space? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
That happens at work all the time. Or oh my God.
What do you guys?
Well,
I think we use the same one.
it's funny because like you mentioned the I realized like in public not a lot of people use the same alarm I do, so I don't feel that like trauma from it because I don't usually wake up to the same one, but
Mhm.
mine's is I think called Seaside by the Cliff or something like that.
That should sound so
It-
pleasant.
it's like yeah, you wake up and it's like a slow, it
Mm.
like ramps up into it like
Yeah.
it gets
Yeah.
louder and louder as
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it it's kind of loud, but it's also still calming.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
So it's you slowly wait. I will say I think the caveat I wonder with because I use the same one
yeah.
is have there been times where it's easier to snooze through that
Yeah.
because it's because it's more calming, less so than radar over here.
It for sure. I mean, I set like 3 alarms just to be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said only 3?
I
Bro,
set only 3 because I don't want to
what a
condition
legend.
myself to think that there's always another one, so I'm
Yeah.
just gonna choose this one.
Right.
Just
Right.
Yeah.
this one.
Right,
So
right,
by the third one, I
Mm.
usually am like, man, I need to get my
right. Yeah.
let's go. Let's get this day started.
With this calming alarm. Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of how I woke up this morning.
Okay.
Waking up to this episode last night, I was telling you guys in the car I had such trouble sleeping. For whatever reason, there was like no external stress in my life, but just
Yeah.
preparing for this episode mentally, definitely
Yeah.
stole some hours of Z's from me.
Yeah.
But
That shows
just
the
to
yeah.
just to transition right into it, yeah, I think it's gonna be a big episode.
Yeah. So getting into it, our hot seat here today is Mr. Anthony. We're just gonna deep dive a little bit into his story and just try to see like the insight and wisdom that can be gained from his experiences, particularly in the topics of saying no
Mm.
and saying no with intentionality, and particularly with the title of this episode is saying no without guilt. And so just to kind of jump right into your story, as you're welcome to share it. What are some big moments in your life, big moments or moments in your life where saying no was really hard?
Yeah, that's a great opener.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to go about this. I think the biggest moment in my head was probably the moving out process.
Okay.
So I was born and raised in San Francisco all the way up until I was 18.
Mhm.
Pretty much up until then, I lived a very sheltered life. I had my older sister there. Always like she was a year and a half older than me, so
Mhm.
always a bit of step ahead. And then my
Mhm.
parents provided us financially like across the board.
Yeah.
So growing up in a very, I guess, privileged family, middle class, we definitely had everything that we needed, and then some.
Yeah.
So I felt very comfortable growing up, and
Mm.
I lived in a family where, it was typical Asian, where there was like boundaries set, but then the way my parents decided to do it was they set more restrictions in the beginning, and slowly over time, as I grew up, they kind of loosened up. which I think was an interesting way to go about parenting.
Yeah.
Um, Fast forward after 18, I moved out for college. Out now, I'm in SoCal doing my own thing, and that's when I really experienced life. I feel like, as we talked about episode 4 of going to college, that's when I really put myself out there.
Yeah.
I told myself I wanted to change the person I was compared to the person I was in middle school.
Wow.
And so for me, that was that flip that we were talking about in last episode. For me,
Yeah.
when I asked you, David, like, what was that defining moment? For me, it was, okay, I'm going to college. There's this person that I want to become, and there's this person that I am, and there's a discrepancy between that. How do I bridge that gap?
Mm.
And college was, for me, the ticket to do that.
Mm.
And so college was a beautiful thing for me. It was a way for me to just recreate myself. And that's the way I took it. And in terms of that, there was a lot of uncertainty involved in that too. A lot of saying no. And kind of fast forward, I'm sure we'll go deeper into it, but fast forward to today, deciding to stay out here and live out here on my own, regardless of not having any family out here, is a big thing of also learning to say no to some of the guilt and the shame initially that I had of like not moving back home the way a lot of pretty much the majority of college students do today, and just choosing like to ride my own path, create my own trail, and just figure out where that kind of takes me in life.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
I would say in general that was definitely those 2 moments of like moving out and then just deciding to stay out was
Yeah.
a huge deal for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, for both of those moments.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean I think that you're not the only one, obviously. Everyone at some point has to sort of deal with those yeses and nos when it comes to first of all moving away from college. Because I commuted to college.
Yeah,
I never really had to deal with that no.
yeah,
As you did, pretty dramatically so, moving
yeah.
basically hundreds of miles away. Um, so what do you, I know you kind of talked more generally about sort of those the general experience, but what are some specific parts of that were more challenging, like behavioral, emotional, spiritual, mental, that you experience?
I think the first one that comes to mind, and that's a great question, is recreate. It's starting from zero again
Mm.
Mm.
because
Talk more about that.
yeah, because back home, I grew up 18 years worth of relationships is really hard to recreate.
Yeah.
I will say,
Yeah, it's kind of that sounds kind of
I
difficult.
will say, and to make that up in the matter of what the last 4 or 5 years, and just to put in perspective, I've been in SoCal since maybe 2020, and then now it's 2025. So it's been a close to 4 to 5 years down here,
Mm.
and I'm just starting to feel like this is my second home.
Mm.
I'm just starting to make that transition over.
Yeah.
And we talked about this idea of home and what it is, but I think for me, the challenge was recreating what that looked like. And so for me, I think I noticed myself like trying to find my friends that I did have at home. For instance, one of my best friends, Brian, that I grew up with, and he moved out to Boston and everything. But um, in line with that, like just being able to, like I was looking for my Brian down here. I was like, where is that person? And then I was looking for, my parents are no longer with me, and so, physically, so I was like kind of looking around for like, okay, who are the parental figures in my life? And so it was just that process of like trying to look for something kind of with an expectation of like I'm expecting you to kind of meet some kind of role.
Mm.
And that kind of, led to some things, some relationships that some I probably shouldn't have had,
Mm.
but also others that I still have to this day,
Mm.
and some friendships that really last. And so
Yeah.
I think I'm just grateful for those situations. And I think something really nice about being able to start clean, start from a clean slate is that you have that option of like not carrying any of that old baggage with you from your past.
Ooh.
And that's a choice, right? Like
Right.
that's not something that everyone came into college with, but that's the mindset of that I had going to college of I'm gonna leave that behind, and this is gonna be kind of a new creation for me. Like this is gonna be a new version,
Mm.
and I'm gonna just step into that and just gung ho it
Yeah.
and see where that takes me.
Yeah.
And so fast forward today, yeah, like that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. Mm.
So
I love that. I have one thing to like supplement and ask
yeah,
in to that is what so we talked about specific things, and you brought up some examples.
Yeah.
Um, where do you think that fuel and that drive comes from to consistently be okay with almost like that idea of letting go and recreating and starting from zero again? Like there's
Okay.
got to be something of a motive almost that gets you to that. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I think I would it's hard to, I think, tell my story without bringing up the idea of like the way working out has played a
Mm,
role in my life.
yeah.
Huge, one of the biggest. I think we talked about in episode 4 of like life has like huge lessons to teach us, but it's not the only teacher. I think that's what you said, Josh.
Mm.
And that one really stuck with me because for me, the gym was like one heck of a teacher.
Mhm.
Like I'm talking like top tier professor right here. Like
Mhm.
it taught me lessons inside of the gym, but also out that
Mm.
like that I can translate outside.
Mhm.
Just so kind of to backtrack, I always had a lot of athletics like tied into my life. I started with swimming. My parents threw me in like a swim team situation. I did all that, and then when that kind of got expensive, I switched. I started working out when I was 13.
Ooh.
So
Started young.
I started really young. So I've been working out. It's so crazy to say, but for about a decade now, because I'm 23.
Hmm.
So like that 10 years of experience has definitely taught me a ton in that time. But I think one of the biggest things that comes to mind when you ask that question is the being comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Mm.
And I think that's a value that I took outside of the gym too. Because when I'm at the gym and Josh has trained me, I still have yet to train with you, David, probably someday.
Hmm.
Would love to do that. But yeah, when I'm at the gym, like I look like I'm crazy. I probably
He kind of does.
scare I probably scare the people around me to a
Yeah.
higher degree than I would like.
Yeah.
Like no one approaches me at the gym. I have headphones on.
He's
I
in the zone.
have multiple people have told me that go to the same gym as me, like friends, right? They're like, I saw you, but I just didn't want to approach you.
Mm.
I'm like, why though? Like we're friends, right?
Mhm.
And they're like, no, you just seem so concentrated. Like I don't want to. You seem so focused.
Mhm.
And that's the exact word I would use. I think in the gym I'm focused, and outside of the gym I take that same focus into the things I'm doing.
Mhm.
Um, and that has just to me like just being able to crush the things that I want to do.
Mhm.
Regardless of yeah, just getting there.
Yeah, so I have a little bit, just to kind of reroute a little bit
Mm,
more to that, this sort of central theme we're talking about is what I'm hearing through that is the mindset that you've gained in the gym has allowed you to give you your all and know how to push yourself.
mm,
But I think sort of the question that we're posing in this episode is, okay, you can be really good at crushing it at stuff, but when do you need to hold back? When do you need to slow
mm.
down? And how do you find that balance between saying yes to things and crushing it, but also not saying yes to too many things, even though you know you could crush it?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so
Um,
so if I were to sort of direction that more specifically, right?
mm,
Um, when you were going through that season of post college, deciding if you should go back home or if you should come back here, I know the mindset that we've talked about that is pertinent to this episode is that either way you probably would have been fine. Going up there were benefits of going back up to be with family, but then there were also benefits of being down here, and you could have done either.
mm.
What what was the inner monologue you were having in deciding to say no to leaving here and going back home? What was your thought process? So sometimes it could be, it can be,
I get what you're saying.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, go for it.
For me, it was kind of tying back into what we said earlier. Building something takes time. It took, you know, like I think that saying of like Rome wasn't built in a day.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, creating home down here was not built in a day. It
Mm-hmm.
was starting to get built after 5 years.
Mm.
And that takes patience. And that takes a lot of perseverance. Um, and in doing so, for me, that choice to move back to San Francisco was almost like a choice to start over and erase everything that I created here and kind of just go back to that that place that was comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, San Francisco,
Mm.
home will always be that place of comfort. Will always be that place where my parents will provide for me
Mm.
financially, physically. I don't have to worry about a thing. But what I realized in college was that having to worry and having to, struggle a little bit in life is healthy.
Yeah.
And I found so much growth in that, in stepping into that space. And it makes me a little emotional talking about it too, because I think the fact that like learning to care for yourself, when this kind of goes into self-care, but like learning to take care of yourself, learning to be your own person, find your own identity, like who you are, what you're meant to do in this life, like what fulfills you, what you care about, what you're passionate about, right? Is something that you can't do. I don't think you could possibly do that sometimes when you're comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's like in the discomfort that you're able to, in that environment of discomfort, you're able to find those things for yourself. Because that's when the strands of your identity are really challenged. That's when your heartstrings are tugged. That's when you're, on the brink of not making it to the next month because you're struggling. And this is part of my story too, of like struggling to figure out where you're living, of finding your first job, of
Yeah.
like being in that financial instability,
Yeah.
and then experiencing like the other side of that, and then looking back and being like, wow, like that was an incredible experience, and it was so hard,
Yeah.
but I got through that,
Yeah.
by the grace of God.
Yeah.
And just being able to do that on your own is such an incredible feeling as a man, I think, to grow into that person that you want to become.
Yeah.
And just to put it short and to summarize, too long didn't read, I would say that, for me it was the fact that it was coming out here was a choice to become the man I wanted to become, because I didn't see myself becoming that man if I were to go back home.
Yeah. Whoa. Let's just let that one sit for a sec, because
Yeah.
that's that's such an upside down way to look at it. I think because it's you're saying choose discomfort because discomfort yields growth versus comfort. When you're comfortable, you don't really feel it's harder to grow.
Mm.
Um, wow.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. That's a lot. And it was in such a good way. Um, I guess maybe to sort of transition to sort of more of those practical, smaller moments, because I think we've established in previous episodes how we all tend to be
Mm.
pretty big go-getters in
Mhm.
our own ways, right? Whether that's school or, rock climbing or anything like that. I think that we tend to be really good at saying yes and putting 150% into that yes. Um,
Hmm.
but maybe David and I could touch a little bit on this, just going into sort of our own experiences about, and I'll maybe prompt this to you, David, is, if, in times of feeling burnout or feeling like your plate is too full and you're at a position that you can add more to your plate
Mhm.
that than is already on it.
Mhm.
What's the process? What's the process, the inner monologue you're experiencing when deciding whether to say yes or no?
Mm. So you guys know how like I'm really big on taking risks,
Yeah,
and
we know that,
I
right? With rock
think
climbing.
anything in this life, I love that idea.
Yeah,
It's so it is actually so amusing at times for me,
yeah,
and almost like how Anthony was saying, I want to touch upon what he was talking about was when you're going through a specific season,
yeah,
and it can be so difficult sometimes. That uncomfortability, like, just might show you something so significant about more of who you are.
yeah,
And I think I process through that inner monologue of like, what's in it for me? Who can come out better from this? What am I obtaining? What do I lose from this? Experience, instance, etc., etc. And I think a lot of what that process looks like is taking that risk and saying like, I don't know what's going to happen once again with uncertainty.
Yeah.
and I just want to walk into this season and I want to retrieve everything that I've got going for me.
Mhm.
And I think discerning that yes or saying that no, more of what we're trying to aim for is acknowledging where you're at and just being honest with yourself.
Mm.
So for example, if I knew I had a lot on my plate, like I would have to acknowledge that and be like, okay, this is a bit much. I'm burnout.
Yeah.
And then once again, I'll take that risk. I'll say either, okay, maybe no, or actually, yes, let me walk into this season. So I love where we're pulling a lot of this, like the idea of letting go is so important,
Yeah.
recreating, building. And I'm sure, Anthony, you've heard this before, right? Like it ties into um, working out where
Mm.
it's easier to, is it, I'm not sure which one it is, but um, building a body and a very beautiful physique. I think it's something to do with which one's easier. Is it the building the body or is it the breaking down the body?
It's it's breaking down as in like
Like
break.
bulk versus cut.
Yeah, basically,
Oh,
yeah. Like,
Yeah.
it
yeah, like which one's?
it tends to depend.
Mm,
For me, it's a lot harder to build
okay.
because I mean, one, you're trying to create new material.
Mm,
Yeah.
But two, I just also have a lot harder time putting on weight just for my body.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder, I think something, I'm just kind of thinking as someone who's out there
Mm,
witnessing this. Um, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but for those of us who are people pleasers, who find validation in other people, what's the struggle with that for you? Like in terms of, because, some of the inner monologue that I did some research on was, there tends to be this sort of pattern of, I don't want to disappoint them,
Mm.
by saying no.
mm,
So it's a dinner with a friend, it's a dinner with family, it's some sort of commitment
mhm,
that involves other people or involves other community.
mhm,
Um, there's I don't want to disappoint them. I don't want them to misinterpret my relationship with them because I'm saying no.
mm,
Um, what's sort of the process that you have in those circumstances where
mm,
you could say yes, but your no is harder because you don't want to, those are maybe thoughts in your mind that you don't want to partake.
mm.
You don't want to be like, oh, I don't want to, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I'm hearing you.
I I'm,
Okay.
I'm digging deep, and this is for you too, Anthony, if you have a thought
Yeah.
for it.
So it reminds me of like intro to economics. We call that opportunity cost.
Bro, wait,
You know?
what? When I
Wow,
brought it up
we're
the
really
other time, you
switching.
knew what it was?
Huh?
When I brought it up that other
Was it
episode,
return on investment,
you
right?
knew what it was? I was talking about that like early on, episode maybe
Opportunity
two.
cost?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, awesome. I,
Yeah.
I, I think I
Go
might
into
have.
it, go into it, go into it.
Well, yeah, and well, I just think about like basically you're weighing, right?
Yeah.
If you say yes, then
Yeah.
your no's look like this. That's the weight, that's the cost.
Yeah.
And if you say no, then your yeses look like this. Like you, whatever choice that you're gonna have, you're gonna either receive so much benefit, but then also so much digression because of that high pigeon. um, like what that choice and decision was.
Mm,
I think you're giving really good like provoking inquiries where we have to navigate that question of like, okay, we have FOMO, fear of missing out. What do we
yeah.
do when we have something like that?
Yeah.
Um, it's it's so different for me because as a psychology major and then also just growing up in a dysfunctional family,
Hmm.
there's so many things in the ways that I have to consider and think, and that amount of thoughtfulness and
Yeah.
internal processing, it almost like it carries so much of a weight where when I have to calculate for, okay, what does me saying no in this situation look like, um it doesn't seem as if anything else really matters except for the decision that I'm making.
Mm,
So if I said no, it's like please authentically and genuinely believe me for that and
mm,
just continue to keep moving on because
yeah.
when I say no, that means like everything in my life I just can't right now,
Yeah.
and you just keep going because the
Yeah.
next time when I say yes, then that means I can commit, you know.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, like does that
No,
answer
so
it?
I would even expand on that even
Yeah.
more so
Mm.
because I think that that also requires two things. It
Mhm.
first off requires the right friends
Yeah.
to understand you in that way
Mhm.
and to hear that your no means no
Yeah.
and your yes means yes, right? And that's even scriptural,
Mhm.
right? Where Paul talks about that, where it's like let your yeses be yeses and your nos be nos, right? Um, but even more as an extension of that, you also have to tell yourself that your no means no and your yes means yes.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that in relation to that first point is if that no isn't received well,
Mm.
that's not on you.
Mm.
If they're like, "Oh, why are you missing out?" or "You should come around to this," you got to stick with it
Yeah.
and be like, "No, my no does mean no,
Mhm.
just as much to me as I would hope that you would receive."
Yeah.
You know,
Mm.
and maybe a practical point with that that I tend to do with my friends
Mhm.
is I will preface it by
Mm.
saying, I have a really busy week. I'll let you know if I can do it or not. But if I can't, I'll be completely honest with you.
Mhm.
Just check in with me right before, and
Mhm.
I'll be square with you on that.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I that's good. I think a point to add to that as well is, um, I love that you, David, that you touched on this idea of like the fact that the choices that we make are also have an effect on the other people around us.
Mm.
And that was tying back a little bit of the being able to say no and people pleasing back into the topic. I think realizing, going back to my story a little bit of like choosing to stay out here by myself was obviously the choice of not moving back home meant I wouldn't see family as often. And that was a huge looming thing that I think was associated with guilt, was associated with shame for a bit. Um, and those are just, I think, to be real with it, it was very hard for me to make that choice. Um, but weighing that out and realizing, I think that our effects aren't only affecting us, our choices aren't only affecting us, but also the people around us
mm,
is itself maturity. Because when you're young, you don't think about other people as much as you do when you get, I hope you do when you get older, you
yeah,
know? It's when you're young, you're just worried about, okay, like other people providing for you, like how am I gonna have fun today? What am I gonna
mm,
do at recess? You know,
mm,
what am I gonna have for lunch?
mm,
But then as you get older, you have other questions of like, how do I pay rent this month? What am I gonna do to get me in a better financial situation the next
yeah,
month? And so those obviously, and then once you have a family, that, exponentially grows to where you start having to care for other people,
yeah,
maybe even more so than yourself.
yeah,
Right.
And so stepping into those places of saying no, I think life always throws more challenges at you.
mm,
That's going to be a given.
yeah,
I think what they say is like the only guarantee is life, that there is no guarantees, because um, nothing is guaranteed to us.
yeah,
And just
yeah,
having to like work towards those things that you always wanted to do.
yeah.
I
That's the word.
guarantee that.
um, no, it's so good. I think to really recognize the relationship between saying no and yes and understanding the impacts of your no's and yeses. And I think we talked about that. I think it was at episode 2 actually with the
Mm,
opportunity costs
burnout,
with
yeah.
burnout where it was like when you say no to one thing, you're also saying yes to a lot of other things,
Yes.
and I guess going back to sort of the people pleaser validation conversation,
Yeah.
I think a lot of times, especially within the context of friendships, relationships, family, at least for me, I really struggled with saying no in high school and in college in an effort in my mind to preserve friendships. Because I felt in my mind, if I said no, even in an effort to protect myself, I would be losing friendship points or something like that, or I'd be losing depth with these people. Which, not to say that if you say no a bajillion times, that won't be actually true. But more so in that particular moment, I treated every yes and no as if I say no, then our friendship's like over. You know what I mean? And that might be an
Yeah.
extreme for me. That's
Mm,
not necessarily everybody per se, but obviously I think it does open sort of a can of worms of it's kind of going back to what you were saying, where it's like the no doesn't just mean I can't commit. What else is the no saying?
Yeah.
Interpreted good or not.
Right? Yeah. That's so good,
You
Josh.
know?
I think something really interesting that this brings to mind, and it's a little bit of a pivot, but
Sure.
bear with me. I think, and there's an anecdote here as well of like sometimes our ability to say yes can be a blessing to others, and sometimes I flip that script to realize that like, what if my yes is a blessing to someone else?
Mm.
And going into a little bit of a story here, I after college was trying to figure out where I should live, and so at the time I was working as a caregiver,
Mm-hmm.
taking care of elderlies, probably part time along with some other jobs that I was doing. But the main thing I was doing was caregiving.
Mm-hmm.
And what that entails is just taking care of somebody, being with them, present, whether they need to take a shower, whether they need to like, use the bathroom,
Mm-hmm.
everything, right? That kind of set the groundwork for a lot of like the quote unquote dirty work that we do in nursing. Just getting your hands dirty, getting in there, helping someone out of their bed, right? Doing all that. And so there came a situation where I was moving out and I knew I needed a place to live. It's just like one of your essentials, right? Like if I'm gonna stay down here, I figured like I'm gonna need a place to at least crash for, right? And so in that moment of like looking for a place, I had the idea of potentially, and this was a very wild out west like idea, but I was like, what if I'm already taking care of this client, a few times a week. What if I just asked them if I could live in with them as a caregiver, and then for them just to not pay me, and then just kind of do that under the table where like their payment would essentially be my rent, and then I would just take care of um this 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 older man that I was already taking care of.
Mm.
So it was a win-win, right?
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I would be there probably more hours than I was there already, just as a second hand to help, and plus I would have this living situation, right? And she was like, okay, let me think about it. Let me ask my kids, whatever. And a week passes by, and like this whole week, I'm just like shaking in my feet. I'm like, oh, this is gonna happen. I'm praying about it. I'm like, just man, if God wants to give this thing to me, like it's gonna happen, right? And a week later, she texts back and she's like, I think that'd be a great idea. And I was like, in that moment, I was just like, wow,
Mm.
um, your yes was such a blessing to me. Um, you have no idea. And I end up fast forward moving in a week later. She, offers me her truck. Like she's this old lady. I ended up staying with her. Long story short, the husband ends up passing away from Parkinson's, and I'm there the whole time to pretty much his last breath. I was there. Um, and she let me live there, and then eventually they moved out, wanting to sell the house because it was too big for her to care for on her own.
Mm-hmm.
And then I and eventually moved into the place I am now.
Mm.
Wow.
But that bridge of the gap between that was that crucial moment where I needed a place to live. That was when I was studying for my NCLEX. That was when I just needed stability in my life.
Mm.
And I felt like God was like, let me just give you stability for that second. And as soon as I was done with my NCLEX, I swear that minute, that moment, that same week, that was when he passed.
Mm.
And that's when the wife was like, hey, tell you what, like I can't take care of this house by myself. I'm probably gonna need to move out, just so you know you have a month in advance.
Mm.
But by then I had already finished my NCLEX. I was kind of in the clear. Just man, God's, I think, timing is so good in that. And that story, just going back to saying yes and being able to be a blessing to others,
Mm.
I think there's a balance there. Um, Sometimes just piggybacking off that story, I think about maybe saying yes at my own expense might be a blessing to others.
Yeah.
Um, as much as it was for, the amazing woman that I got to move in with. But I think just the story to highlight that experience of like the power of a yes,
Yeah.
um, to not be underestimated as much as, the power of saying no, and each
Yeah.
has its place and time.
Yeah.
It's knowing when to utilize those things in your toolkit.
Yeah. I have a really good word for you.
Dude, hit me.
I'm about to drop this on you right now.
Hit me. I'm
Are
ready.
you ready?
I'm ready.
I feel like that experience highlights a lot about how God responds to our prayers, right? Like, God doesn't always give us yeses. He doesn't always give us no's either. And sometimes he gives us not yes or no, but wait. But when he says yes, oh my goodness, he says yes in the best way he possibly could.
Yeah.
And when he says no, he really means no. He'll close that door. He says wait, he really means wait. And that story that you told highlights that to a T, where it's you looked to the Lord and said, God, if you open this space, I want that to be your choice. I want it to be your yes. And praise God, that yes was given to you
Yeah.
through her. And, just knowing you personally outside of that, there were so many more yeses that came and blessings that came from that yes. But it initially started with that, yeah, you can totally live here.
Yeah.
It's like, I remember that was mind boggling for you. Mind boggling.
Yeah, I was like, what happened? I just hit the lottery.
Yeah,
Like
it
there's
almost
no
it felt
there's
like
there
that.
it felt
Yeah.
unreal. It was like
Yeah.
there's no way this is happening in this moment. Like
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
she did not
Yeah.
just say yes.
I got you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Wow.
there's no way I'm moving in right now.
Yeah.
And I remember you helping me move in. I think
Yeah, I helped you
yeah.
move in for both.
Yeah, dude. It's been a roller coaster of a ride.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Like
I remember how the yes was so, it wasn't that it was unexpected, but it was just so unbelievable that all of it, I don't want to say it was working out, but just the fact that it was working out, I remember talking to other people, I really don't believe this is happening for him. Not because I didn't have faith that God would provide for you, but it was unbelievable. I couldn't believe it. Even now, looking back, it's still wild to me that God showed up when you needed him.
yeah. And it's crazy because that family that I got to live with, I got to like get to hang out with their grandkids, and
Mm-hmm.
they just got to see that as such a blessing. And so in a lot of ways, in that yes that she initially said, I was able to be a blessing to their family.
Yeah.
And that I think is the full circle moment of when you are at a place where you can't give. I think God often puts people in your life to give to you.
Yeah.
But in that moment where you have enough, where things are sufficient, you have a little more than you maybe need.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's when we're called to sometimes say yes and be a blessing to others, return that favor,
Mm.
Yeah.
right?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I want to hear your thoughts too, David. Is as an extension of what I had said before, when from yeses can come more yeses. Where
Yeah,
it's like in you receiving that blessing, you also were equipped to give blessing
yeah,
through God was able to give that through you. So it's
yeah,
like in their time of saying, Lord, we need someone to help take care of our dad or our grandpa or our husband, you you were that yes
yeah,
that God said, here's your guy.
right.
Where it's like, is
Yeah.
that kind of crazy or what?
It's
It's
no,
hurting my brain.
it is really crazy, and I think the part of the story that I, still haven't like was able to flesh out was the fact that following that time of like me going through it and having being able to have that space to live in their place,
Mhm.
the season after was followed by such a difficult time for that family
Yeah.
because they had probably three family members pass away in the span of a few months.
Mm.
Um,
Wow.
and for me to also be able to see that happening and to realize that they were such a blessing to me, um, and ask myself, how can I be a blessing to them in return?
Yeah.
How can I return that and
Mm.
be, some type of stability for them? I think was a just a looming question that I had in that season of returning the grace that
Mm.
I was given. So,
So good.
Oh my gosh.
but yeah, I think there's more to that story, but yeah, for sure after that season,
Yeah.
currently moving into a place now of being able to say more yeses. I
Yeah.
think currently, so I finding my job, I think I already had mentioned kind of that story
Yeah.
last episode, so
Yeah.
you guys are filled in there.
Mm.
But
Mm.
the story of that, like leading up to that, of being able to now like extend grace to other people that might need it more,
Yeah.
I think has been definitely a change of seasons for me,
Mm.
of switching into now have more time to create, to pursue a passion. And I think the message that I think I get from that, and I learn, and I definitely like want to push out too, is this idea of like to go and like chase after your passions, because I think your passion is one of those things that someone no, like no one can take away from you. It's something that you were created with, and you could just do amazing things with it. And it doesn't matter what you're passionate about, whether it's climbing or whether it's you just love writing, you love creating in that way. But I think we were all just created in some way to create as
Mm,
a reflection of being God's image.
mm,
And so finding that what that is for you takes time and takes trial and error. I worked a whole lot of jobs to come across the one that I'm at now, and to even want to step into like podcasting as a role. Like
yeah.
it's crazy to say like we have our own podcast. Like,
Yeah.
That is
that's
actually wild.
it's really insane.
Yeah.
So cool.
But it's such an accomplishment as well.
Yeah.
And just a testament to the fact that like you can do that thing that you've always wanted to do. You
Yeah.
can do that thing that you've been thinking about, but
Yeah.
it's just taking that first step into the action.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there's something so powerful about looking back at your history. I mean, that's why, and as we've shared, I think is the value of journaling is because you have a track record of God's progress on you. You know what I
You
mean?
put it that way.
Yeah, it's
That's a
true.
good way to put it.
Progress because we're not ever
Yeah.
fully complete.
Yeah.
But it is a a way to say, God, I prayed for this then, how did you show up? Or I wanted a yes in this, and how did you respond? And I'll get into that next episode. We will see when I talk a little bit about my own story when it comes to stuff like that. But David, just kind of a point of thought to jump off of that. What are some seasons in your life where you've experienced God's yeses and God's nos, and how did you respond to those? To maybe even put it in a different way,
Yeah.
God's yeses saying, I prayed for this, I wanted this, I desired this, and God granted that for you. And just said, let me open this door for you. And the opposite situation, and perhaps even where you are,
Yeah.
as you're yearning for something, you're longing for something,
Right.
and God does not open that door, or presents it to you in a way that is saying, I'm not ready to let you into this yet.
Yeah.
I like preached a word to myself a little bit there.
That was wonderful. I think of some examples like I can't wait to touch on this episode of like relationships, of marriage, or what that looks like, a commitment to someone in any vicinity of that meaning. Because I would always pray. Let's talk about the after effects of a relationship. Um, so I've actually never been in an actual like committed relationship,
Okay.
and what I've realized is, for one, I'm not a person to kind of expand and keep my numbers going in relationships, so I'm not like a go-getter with relationships. I'm a go-getter at everything else in life. Like you give me any physical activity, like you give me an Ironman or an ultra marathon to do, like I will train, I will practice, I will do whatever I have to.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to relationships, it's like I prioritize me and my relationship with God first, and that's why everything else, it doesn't necessarily fail, but I think that's where God is saying like no to those relationships.
You're a
because-
go-getter in your relationship with God.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Let's reframe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. And that is so yeah, I am a go-getter in my relationship with Christ, and that is so important to me in the ways where I don't want to prioritize relationships with like, people more than Christ.
Yeah.
Because God is so important to me
Yeah.
down at its core. And going to relationships though, the closest thing that I've ever gotten to was what felt like an actual relationship, but Gen Z deals a lot with these situationships you talk about, right? And well, one of them were very beautiful and ended up not working out, and I'm so grateful for every single second of it.
Yeah.
But I would always pray for a sense of God to reveal a peace and
Yeah.
a healing.
Mm.
Because after something so special, you might not know how to truly process and really get through all of those like gnarly knots,
Yeah.
you know, but God's right there providing his hand, and he's like, I'm here to help you.
Yeah.
Like, will you allow me to help you?
Mm.
Yeah.
Will you let me help you? And so that's a moment where I've prayed and I'm like, Lord, I need healing, and he's given that to me. A time that he might have said no was, and I think it's so clear that especially when you're asking things out of your own desires in your hearts, and it's like a wants and needs type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and in that circumstance of season,
Yeah.
I think your no's might be more recognizable, especially in building relationship with God, because that's not coming from a good place. From your desires as a,
Mhm.
because we're human beings, human nature at its core, we're fallen, which means we're sinful, which means we do bad things. But I think the grace and the amount of support that God still has within that journey is so critical.
Yeah.
And that changes everything
Yeah.
when we receive that.
Yeah. No, just to bounce off of that,
Mm,
it just to bounce off that very last point
mm,
is God's perspective of, have you guys heard that thing where it's like God's perspective of our lives versus our own perspective of our lives?
mm,
So it's like we view our lives sort of like a line at McDonald's. Like we're, but like we see the person in front of us and we
yeah.
see the person behind us,
Oh,
right? It's sort of this more linear,
mm,
right? But if you can visualize with me, God views our life like this,
mm,
where he views it from a horizontal perspective, where he sees we're looking at the person in front of us, but he also sees a mile ahead of us at the same time.
mm,
So he sees, oh, he's desiring for this door, but I also already see the future ahead of him.
mm.
And so, okay, I'm going to close that door so he can get to here.
Wow.
Or I'm going to open that door so he can get to here.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that perspective is not, I think that the great thing about faith is that we get the ability to access that perspective, not that we know what's ahead in our lives,
Yeah.
but at least we can have the grace for ourselves to be able to know that God's in control,
Yeah.
and that the yeses and the nos, that there's actually no loss in the yeses and the nos. There's only victory because it's already been secured for us.
Mm,
And so that sort of attitude of saying, God, I want this. I have a desire for this, but Lord, your desire for me triumphs over every desire I have for myself because
yeah.
you know me and you know what I need.
Mm,
Um, and so I just wonder if that's sort of a kind of as we kind of head towards wrapping this, I think that that's something that I would encourage not only us but for our listeners to reflect on is, um, how do you posture yourself in response to God's calling for you?
mm.
Whether it's a direction that
Good.
you want to go or it's a direction you don't want to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the way that you posture yourself, particularly with your relationship with the Lord, can change everything.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah.
Yeah, the McDonald's analogy. That's good. um,
Yeah,
I just want to glean a little bit from both what you guys just said,
sure.
and as we kind of do round it up here, there's been so much. This episode has been packed with
Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
value. I'm like checking the time here. I'm like, wow, there's still a lot of time left technically, but
Yeah.
we are gonna. I think it's been a lot of heavy topics,
Yeah.
but I think the one question that lingers in my head that I don't know if we necessarily covered is how I got from the point of saying no being really difficult to saying no being somewhat of an easier thing. And
Yeah.
I want to take the time right now to kind of clarify that and how I bridge that gap,
Yeah.
Please.
as we kind of finalize our thoughts here. Um, I think for me, it came down to this, right? And I'm gonna totally make this into a short here. This is a short moment. Oh, I think it was for me, it was the mindset shift of realizing and seeing my life in a perspective that I wasn't seeing it before. And to go into that a little bit more, I think being able to see every experience that you are, and David touched on this a little bit, as a experience to either learn from, um, and or either like you either win or you either learn, and there's no losing mentality.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a difference between a victim mindset and a learner's mindset, right? I think life awards those who meet it with the eagerness to learn. I think life has so much to teach us,
So good.
and it receives, and as long as we meet that challenge, any challenge we go across, right? And we call these challenges, I think, because there is this reward at the end of it, right? Which is this like stronger version of you that you're created. And I think the second that I began to understand that, and it was a slow process, but as I began to step into that, to reframing the things that I thought of, this is a very challenging situation. I don't know if I'm going to be able to have a place to live next month, but this is going to form me into someone with more patience, more gratitude, more appreciation for the things I already have. And I think this can look like so many different ways. If you are, currently struggling with like a broken ankle, like just the fact that you can still experience life with your hands, that you can still experience life with the way you see the world with your eyes. People weren't even born into this world with those things. And just to see every opportunity, every challenge is an opportunity to grow. I think is the way for me that I was able to bridge that gap between like saying no becomes so much easier. Going through challenges in life becomes so much easier. It's almost like the harder the challenges you go through, the easier everything is relative to that.
Right.
Right?
That's good.
Because when I was able to experience going through life in the last year, which was a very difficult time of like finding a job and employment, and now being on the other end of it and like going through a bodybuilding competition, physically being at my ends, right?
That was
like
crazy.
physically and just experiencing hunger on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even really touch on that part, but just experiencing that makes everything else, like every other hunger moment, so minuscule.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is nothing compared to the sacrifice that I made in that moment of my life.
Yeah.
And if I lived through that moment of my life, what is this little moment here?
Yeah.
It's just a speck.
Yeah.
And so I think to bring that perspective into it, I think the takeaway here, to be practical, is honestly the attitude that I typically take is just to open myself up to, any kind of challenges, to invite challenges into my life, to seek challenges even.
Yeah.
And I think with that being said, I think today I'm at definitely a healthier place in terms of
Come on.
being able to say no sometimes,
Come on.
with the caveat of saying yes in order to bless others.
Come on.
And so just to leave it there, I think to fill that gap and kind of where we're at with currently to this day,
Yeah.
definitely took time to get there.
Come on. Any last thoughts? That was a good.
That was so good.
Oh, I don't want to leave it. I just want to leave it.
I just want to put a pin in that.
Put a pin in that.
Yeah.
I'll pray us out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heavenly Father, we just come before you today, just with open arms to whatever you're calling us to do. Thank you for Anthony's story. Thank you for the wisdom and everything that you've given to him through the challenges and the blessings that you have placed him in this season. Thank you that David and I could be here to receive that, and for everyone listening, that they can also be recipients of that. And if there's anyone today or anyone, whoever's listening to this, wherever they are in life, that is feeling pushed and propelled and challenged by these words, I pray that you would just remind them of your closeness and relationship with them, Lord, and that your yeses mean yes and your nos mean no, but that doesn't mean that you care for us any less. And I just pray that as we continue to engage in our stories, that you would just bring so much goodness from them, and that none of it's going to be wasted for your glory, Lord. Amen.
All right, guys, the episode 6. Thank you so much for watching. Truly, I think if you made it up to this far, I think we just have so much appreciation just from all the feedback that we've been getting. It's such a pleasure, such a pleasure. I can speak for all of us here.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
100%.
To just make these episodes. We got here around 6 a.m. just literally filming for you guys. So
Come
a
on.
lot of work goes into these episodes, and I think we love to do it, and continue to do it. I do want to say that yeah, next episode we can definitely look forward to hearing a little bit of Josh's story. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a really good one, and just excited to continue sharing a little bit of our stories and hopefully be able to have an impact on yours. So there you have it, guys. See you guys in the next one. It's the Good Life, your practical guide to adulting. Take care, guys. Have a good week.
Come on.
Oh, dude.
That was good.
Let's go.
Oh man, that was a freaking good one. That was a good one.